really matter if I don't think it's good.
Sure.
Because again, age doesn't matter anymore. Age used to be a big thing because, record labels would sell in volume. It was all about volume. Because you think about it, right? Only in the record business, if you only sold 100,000 copies or 100,000 products of anything, of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would consider that a success, right? But in the record business, if you only sold 100,000 albums in the old system, that would be considered a flop.
Right.
But if you did the math, 100,000 albums at $10 is $1 million, right? But, any other industry, you'd be praising it, but because of the fact of, by the way, who decided that only going gold is to achieve success? Right? Who decided that? Who
Some promotions,
who decided to make that the industry standard?
Where I'm coming from on this is the fact that, in the radio business, both David and I can tell you that, we might have played a song on the air and just absolutely hated it, but we played it because we knew our audience was going to want to hear it.
Correct.
And I think the same is true. Like, for example, let's take hip-hop. I am not a fan of hip-hop, not at all. However, I also recognize those artists that are genuinely talented, and we've had some of them on this show. So even though you may not like it and I may not like it, can you recognize those that are truly talented and have that je ne sais quoi, if you will, to get to their audience and make a couple of bucks doing it?
I think I can. I think music is about emotion, right? So you can, even if it's not something that you necessarily are huge fans of, but if you can tell when something sounds good, when it feels good, when this can work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This can be what we need it to be. Then again, you're not making music for everybody. You're not making music for your own person. If something can be marketed to an audience, and it's good, then let's work with it.
Okay.
I could say this. There's A&Rs at labels right now, especially we'll take hip hop and urban music, right? Because that's where I mostly play it, right? So you have A&Rs who are maybe older, because look, these kids they're signing now are much, much younger. So let's say you have a person at A&R at a label who might be in their 40s, mid-40s, right? They're not. This is not their generation of music. They're not really going to know what's really hot. They're depending on young kids to tell them what's hot. You're not supposed to know at 45 what being a judge with the 17-year-olds like. It's not your era. You're not supposed to know that. This is why you have to keep young people around you and people who understand the era, because you're just not supposed to know that. Like
I remember going through those same thoughts, and I'm sure John has too. Back in my early radio days, well, actually during my later days too, because I started out in high school, and so I was young in age as well as in the business, and I can remember, meeting these people, the record executives, the hype masters, the ones that came around telling you what the new record to plug this week is, and they come in with their bundle of records, and once in a while a gift of some kind. I was lucky; I managed to avoid the pay-for-play garbage. I didn't get mixed up in that. But, I remember thinking, these guys are all 50, 60 years old. How can they possibly have a finger on the pulse of today's youth and know what records need to be made to reach today's youth? And that
Can I interject something on that?
Yeah, that part has not changed. We still have to, you have to know your audience. You have to be able to relate to them and know what the pulse is. And John, you wanted to say.
Yeah, well, you just made me think of a real blatant example of how the older guys might actually be best for the business. And the reason why I say that, years ago, before the untimely death of Frank Zappa, he did an interview about the music business and how the music business back in the 60s and into the early 70s was run by all these old guys, all these old, recording company executives. And their thing was, hey, let's put it out there. Let's see if it sells a few copies of it. Yeah, it's not going to really cost us anything. Let's just put it out there. Probably 90% of the time, they hit a home run. But then they had this guy in the mailroom, and he was this long-haired, noble-fared, walking around with a psychedelic gleam in his eye at all times. And they decided to bring him in and let's talk to him to find out what the kids want. And so they promoted him to become a record executive. And so he started.
And Sonny Bono was born.
I know what the kids want. They don't want to listen to this. They want to listen to that. And it was a spectacular failure. So, we old dinosaurs, the three of us here, I really do, honest to God, I believe because we do it old school, we know what's going to work and what's not, and which leads me back to why I asked you that question about what if they suck? What do you do? How do you let them down gently?
I mean, I guess it's one of those things you just got to try to tell people, hey, man, I'm not the person for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way.
That's just better to put it. Hey, I'm just not the person to help you, and I'm just not. I'd rather not take somebody's money knowing that I can't really help them. Because, look, there's people in this industry who serve as consultants and do what I do, right, who will just take your money and then they just will take your money and you'll never hear from them. Now,
take the money and run, yes, right. And I respect you for that.
Right, and granted that there is no guarantees when it comes to what we do and when it comes to art, right? If I just don't vibe with it, and and there's some music I don't like. For instance, I don't work in country. It's not my world. Doesn't mean that it's not good music. I don't have the relationships in country music. There's certain things I won't work with because I just don't work in those spaces. I don't have, to be successful, you have to have relationships with people. You know what I mean? You have to be able to know, because when you hire a consultant like myself or whatever, you're not necessarily just paying for the information and knowledge, because the information and knowledge is really out there. You can get it for free. You can go on the internet, right? But what you're paying for is the execution of how to take that knowledge and make it work, and the relationship and the network of a particular person, right?
Right. Well, that makes sense.
So I'm not going to just work. I'm not going to work in spaces that I don't necessarily have relationships with. Now, I will say this. Most recently, I was working with a metal band. But what I was teaching them, though, was universal principles. Right? Not so much, we didn't really get into, okay, I'm going to start to plug you with this radio person, that radio person. But what I can say is that there are fundamental principles, just like sports. There are fundamental principles that can be taught whether or not the person is LeBron James or the average person on the bench, right? There's still the fundamentals of the game or the fundamentals of whatever it is you're learning that can be taught to anybody.
Right.
And but when it comes to specifics, like, okay, I could plug you in this particular person, that particular person, that's just, you just have to have certain relationships that you can do certain things if you're doing this ethically. If you're not, which a lot of people aren't, take your money.
Unfortunately, sad but true. And I want to commend you for your philosophy of not taking their money just to take their money. I advise all emerging artists on their way up from the stone cold beginner on up. Take that message to heart. There are a lot of people out there that'll be willing to take your money and run, even if they know that you're not going to make it. You've got no place to go. So be careful. Probably one of the first things you need to think about when you think about becoming a professional musician is, how do I know that I'm getting advice from someone who has my interests at heart? Where do I know who am I going to be able to trust? Yes, Durell.
Right, and here's what I'll say to that. Right, so majority of people, this is how you guys find me. I give out knowledge. Right, so I give out knowledge, and I'm postured on what I'm talking about. So when you read and see my content, you know that I'm not just blowing smoke up somebody's ass. Right, So
right.
I think, and that allows me to build trust with people without ever meeting them or talking to them firsthand, right? I'm consistent. So the way you do that is, look, there is no better business bureau for the entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, you will get burned a couple of times. This is the nature of the game. You're in this thing long enough, you're going to get burned. Everybody does.
Right.
So if you're complaining about spending a couple of $1,000s and you get burned, you might want to get out this business, because that's not a whole lot of money. If you're complaining about spending, $5, $6, $8, $10,000, that's not a lot of money in this business.
In the
so
overall
I think
scheme.
a lot of people got to get that. They got to get that reality out there, that perception out their mind. If you're trying to nickel and dime your way in this space, it will not work for you. You might as well just stop. It just won't work. So as far as being trusted, I just try to give out knowledge, information I think can help people. And what that's done for me is that when most people come and find me, they've already been watching me for a little while, and they're already. And also, too, guys, I give everybody doesn't subscribe to this, but I give anybody and everybody a free 30 to 45-minute conversation with me. Which people are like, Durell, why do you do that? You should be charging, $100 an hour. And I really shouldn't be charging that. But for me, I want to build a rapport with people I work with. I want them to know when they work with me that I'm not out here just to take their money. So, yeah, I will sit down for 45 minutes, maybe an hour most times, and sit down and, I'm going to pitch my service. I'm going to pitch what I do. But at the end of that call, there's going to be some trust built. And essentially, that's how people get comfortable working with me. So I can always pick for me, but that's how my process works.
Right, and you're right. I know we touched on this before, and that was relationship building a relationship between the management, the promotion, and the artists themselves. But before we run out of time, I want to take a moment here and let you do a little self-promotion, because we believe very strongly in that. How does a emerging artist contact you to discuss whether you two want to get together and talk about it or not? How do they get in touch with you for your opening?
It's real simple. They can go to Text Durell. That's TXT Durell, DURELL, textdurell.com. So they can text me. Put their phone number in there and shoot me a text. I will respond back to them, right? And that's how we get the dialogue started that way. That's the quickest way. Also, they can find me on social media, which is at Durell Peart, again, DURELLPEART.
Which is where we got in touch with you.
On all platforms, right? So they can find me there. And that's the best way. And obviously my website is DurellPeart.com. But initially, if they want to start a conversation, they can go to textdurell.com, put their phone number there, and that will start the conversation, and then we'll go from there.
Fantastic. And to carry through on the thought that brought us to this point, that is relationship building. I think most people, by the time they get the idea to turn pro, have got a feeling for the fact that they're going to need some help, and they want to find it. But they probably also have a concept of a relationship, even though I have met some semi-seasoned pros that have no idea what a relationship is. How does an upcoming artist, how does one build this relationship, whether it's with a management person, a promoter, whatever? How does a new artist go about building this relationship?
Good question. It's basically what you're saying is networking, right? So when it comes to networking, the quickest, the best and easiest way to do that is when you want to build with somebody, make it about them first, not about you. Right. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to approach relationships with a me first mentality, with a take mentality. You can't do that. And our industry is all people. You have to be willing to give. You got to give. Let somebody. What are you willing to do for somebody to help them make their life a little bit easier?
Right.
And they're going to remember that. They're going to remember how to do that. Also too, have good soft skills. Know how to send an email professionally. Know how to talk to people. Soft skills matter, but the quickest way is, and the most best way to approach it is always make it about the other person first.
Excellent. And
because then you're operating from a place of how can I help